So what if our whole understanding of empathy is kind of backward? Today, we're going to dig into a really common belief about what it means to be compassionate and explore what happens when we flip the script, when we stop talking about emotional overwhelm and start talking about something called integrated capacity.
Okay, let's start with an idea that's pretty much everywhere, even if we don't say it out loud. It's the assumption that to be truly empathetic, you have to be absolutely crushed by someone else's pain. You know, the more it hurts you, the more you must care. But what if that's not just wrong, but actually counterproductive? What if the highest form of empathy isn't about drowning in emotion, but something else entirely?
To start chipping away at that idea, I want you to just look at this number, positive 0.1420. Right now, it probably means absolutely nothing. But trust me, by the time we're done here, you'll see why this one little piece of data is a really big deal and why it might just change the way you think about empathy for good.
So here's our game plan. We'll kick off with that big empathy assumption. Then we'll unpack that surprising number and what it really means. We'll dive into the hidden and often clashing definitions of empathy. We'll look at the real-world costs of getting this wrong, how we can actually predict these human dynamics, and finally, what the future holds for all this with AI. Let's jump in.
All right, part one, the empathy assumption. We're starting on solid ground here, with an idea most of us would probably just nod along with.
This quote just nails the issue perfectly. We see someone get completely overwhelmed with emotion, and we treat it as proof of their empathy. We think, wow, they really care. But as the source points out, there's a huge hidden cost. When we do that, we're not actually building a connection that lasts. We're just validating an emotional flood, which over time actually eats away at our ability to truly help.
And that brings us right to our second section, where the data starts to paint a very, very different picture. It's time to finally figure out what that number we saw a minute ago is all about.
Okay, here it is, the big reveal. That number, plus 0.1420, comes from a massive global poll on empathy. And what it shows is a statistically significant positive link between people at what Spiral Dynamics calls the Turquoise vMEME and them strongly disagreeing with the idea of feeling overwhelmed. Now, for a quick refresher, the Turquoise worldview is a very integrated, holistic way of seeing the world. So what this means is, the more someone operates from this mindset, the less likely they are to see overwhelm as their main response. It's not that they lack empathy, it's that they define it completely differently.
So here's the key. They're not just rejecting overwhelm, they're replacing it with this idea of integrated capacity. This is the ability to connect with someone suffering with real depth, but in a way that's sustainable, a way that doesn't drain you dry. Think of it like this. It's the difference between being a candle that burns itself out in one bright flash and being a solar panel that can provide energy day after day. And this whole redefinition thing, it isn't just happening at Turquoise. It turns out the word empathy is sort of like a Trojan horse. On the outside, it looks like one simple thing, but inside it's packed with all these different and often contradictory meanings.
This chart just lays out the conflict so clearly. For the purple stage, empathy is just mirroring feelings. I feel what you feel, that keeps our tribe together. But jump to blue and it becomes a matter of duty and procedure. Then you get to orange and empathy is a strategic tool, a way to get things done, not an emotional thing. Then green sees it as a deep emotional investment for the group's harmony, which yellow then rejects, seeing overwhelm as a failure of the system and focusing on boundaries. So you see, everybody's using the same word, but they are playing completely different games.
And this clash of definitions isn't just some interesting theory. When you take this out of the abstract and into the real world, especially in organizations, the fallout from this misalignment can be really, really damaging. This is where things start to actually break. Just think about this in a normal workplace. If a manager's idea of a caring employee is someone who is emotionally exhausted all the time, that green relational harmony idea, what happens? Well, you start rewarding burnout. The very systems designed to support people end up celebrating depletion as if it's compassion. Real, sustainable connections get weaker, and pretty soon the word empathy just becomes a useless buzzword. And this kicks off a chain reaction that is just devastatingly predictable. First, the organization validates overwhelm. It signals that this is what caring looks like. This starts to erode the actual capacity of its best people. That leads straight into compassion fatigue, and then finally to the total burnout of the helpers, the very people you can't afford to lose. It's like a self-destruct sequence, and it's all powered by a simple misunderstanding of a word.
So seeing that self-destruct sequence is pretty heavy.
It makes you wonder, right? Is there any way to see this coming, to actually manage this kind of human chaos? Well, that leads us to a really powerful framework for doing just that, something the source material calls the algebra of conscience.
Okay, let's break this down. It sounds way more complicated than it is. The first piece is the state vector. Just think of it like a psychological fingerprint for a team. It's a snapshot in time that captures not just their different worldviews, but also the emotional climate, the levels of fear, trust, and well-being in the room. Next up, you have control. This is just a fancy term for the moves a leader can make, the levers they can pull. It's all the stuff you'd expect. Lay someone off, give a bonus, switch to remote work, or, and this is a really important one, choose to do nothing at all.
And this right here is where the conscience part comes into play. The objective function is the scorecard. It's where you have to put your money where your mouth is and assign a real value to things like employee fear or well-being, right alongside the financial bottom line. The goal isn't just to make the most money, it's to maximize the overall health and stability of the whole system.
So let's see how this all clicks together. The SD Navigator tool takes the current psychological state of the team, our S of T, then you plug in a management decision, a control, like reduce salaries. The system then runs a simulation and shows you the future psychological state, S of T plus 1, showing the impact on fear, trust, and every worldview. It even spits out a new stability score. You're basically getting to test drive your biggest leadership decisions and see the human fallout before you commit.
Now, running these kinds of complex models used to be something only data scientists could do, but that is all about to change. Our last section looks at how AI is on the verge of making these incredible tools available to pretty much everyone. So let's talk about this emerging trend called AI vibe coding. The basic idea is that in the very near future, you won't need to know how to write code to do complex data analysis. You'll just be able to talk to a large language model, like Claude or Cursor, in plain English, describe the vibe of what you're looking for, and it will build the whole thing for you. So instead of spending hours writing some complex query to analyze that big empathy poll, you could just type something like this, a simple, natural sentence. You just tell the AI what you want to know, and it does all the heavy lifting.
And just like that, the AI could generate the kind of deep, insightful analysis we see here. This means that algebra of conscience we talked about becomes something a team leader or a small business owner could actually use, not just a data team at a huge company. It basically democratizes the ability to lead with real, data-driven compassion.
So, we end up back where we started, but now with a totally different lens. The real question isn't just about what empathy is. It's about what happens to our teams, our companies, and frankly, our ability to care for each other when we make this fundamental shift. What breaks, or maybe what gets built, when we stop measuring empathy by the intensity of our exhaustion and start measuring it by the depth of our integrated capacity? That's definitely something to think about.